kind of woke up. I had my scanner on, and I heard working fire for the weekend. So yes, and I said, oh, but the criteria I use is if I was working, would I want the extra help? It's kind of what I thought, like, do I go to line manner? Absolutely.
I don't know what day it
No,
was. It doesn't matter.
right, but unless they.
We're running.
But for a fire,
We're We've got
because I would hope somebody would come and help me. I was.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you were just coming off of 24 or whatever you were, so.
Do you have copies of the plan?
I have not seen the plan.
I put him in the dog.
So-
Attach him.
Between you and I, we can answer any questions, but I do not have,
Donnie's not here today.
I do not have any revised.
So you're like holding by the ears.
So I'm like holding him like this. I'm like, what do you think? Never forget that.
If we have to, we
Not
may have to table it out here.
Texted me a few days this morning.
We have on the agenda the out years for the plan, but Stuart doesn't have a copy of the plan, John is not here. But it doesn't affect the budget, so if it doesn't get done till our next meeting, it's
Whatever, I can't get the driveway.
okay, well,
Oh, that's why. We were still snowing, but.
shut up about the things. Boy went off to work.
He said 6:30 he was leaving, so I left him, he was still in his pajamas and whatnot.
He didn't get home till 5.
I told him he's gotta go look for tires tomorrow, so.
He works at FedEx, Bradley.
At Bradley, so he texted me this morning at 3:30 this morning when he was leaving work. He works Sunday.
Alright, I will call to order regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen today, March 4th, 2019. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is approval of minutes. We have our last regular meeting, February 19th, as well as a special meeting on February 26th.
Starting with the motion. Sure. Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for February 19th.
Motion by Liza, seconded by John. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Make a motion to accept the February 26th special meeting minutes.
One second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Anyone present to speak? No. Okay. Correspondence. You see a very short list of correspondence in your packet. I will speak to, it falls under correspondence and in good and welfare, the list that we get from the state police that I shared last meeting. As I believe you had asked if they could break out some of that information. I'm actually meeting with Lieutenant Corey, who's head at Troop C, and our new liaison, Sergeant King, tomorrow. And so we hope to share that information as well as meet our new liaison to Troop C. So hopefully at our next meeting, we'll be able to share some of that with you. All right, status report. I have nothing, no, I do have something to share. We hired a verbal commitment and waiting for the signed commitment for a new transfer station assistant operator. So that person should be starting with us at the transfer station this weekend while we get all the necessary paperwork, so that is a plus. Lisa is having holding interviews for assistant tax collector tomorrow, beginning tomorrow. And also, I shared with you last week, the week prior, I apologize, that we received a resignation from Lisa Madden, our revenue collector. She is leaving us and going to Summers. You know, it certainly brings up something we've talked about in the past and our limited, either our limited resources or our choices. So she's leaving us to take a similar position in Summers, which is not much larger in town than Wellington, it is larger, for a significant pay increase, which is probably more in line with what a revenue collector should be making. And it once again goes to speak to what is it that we hope to be. With the salary we had, and we know all of our salaries are incredibly low, do we look at someone coming here, getting all of the certifications that they need and taking their experience with us onto bigger and better someone else? Or do we feel that we would rather they stay here with us? And I believe a competitive salary is something that shows that we value our employees, which I believe we do. So it's something for us to think about in incoming budget discussions and going forward. We need to decide who we want to be and what we want to be here. So we wish her nothing but well. She is here with us until this Friday, the 11th. She has offered to stay on Fridays to help us in the absence of anyone in that office at a per diem rate, which I think we should consider. She's offered to stay and help get someone trained in that office, and right now Fridays is the day she has to offer, that is the day they are closed in Summers. So if this board does not have any opposition to that, I would like to entertain having Lisa stay with us on a per diem basis on Fridays. Until such time that a tax collector is named.
It's one of those cases, I don't think we have much of a choice on it, but we probably should make it a motion here as to, what day she would be here and what day she would be looking at.
So with that, I move to add item F to new business. Tax collector resignation. That way we can continue on it. Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of adding item F?
Aye.
Okay. Public Works. Well, if any of you woke up this morning, you can see they have not been doing much except plowing, March, snow, and who doesn't want that? So they worked all night. They went in early, in the evening last night, overnight, and I think our roads were in great shape this morning, as they have been. So kudos to our Public Works crew, and once again, our new director, Troy, will be beginning with us 2 weeks from tonight on the 18th. And if I say that with a little more joy, it's because I'm looking for my phone file to be down last one. So we look forward to that, as do the Public Works Department. So new business. Item A is a discussion on solar rendering at Button Hill. So I know Don had come to us several moons ago, several months ago, talking about the potential for solar at Button Hill. So he's here with us again. So Don?
Yeah, thank you. I also brought a plan that I got from Eric Peterson today.
Okay.
It kind of shows the larger format. And I sort of apologize for the low-cost renderings that I supplied, but they were free, so I hope that suffices. If not, then we can.
I think it's at least a place to begin.
Yeah. Now, this is the plan. What I put here is my backyard. With either my panels on the roof or the panels, all black panels on the ground, or the typical panels with a silver frame and the white back sheet. It looks more like a typical solar panel,
Okay.
or some Chinese panels. These were US made panels, that's what.
Okay.
And they were all put up at different eras, essentially. So that's a little bit of the look. Here's a little bit of Button Hill with the tree line showing how limited an area we have. And
where is it? Can you see on here where you're hoping the
Uh,
panels to be? Or is it
it's-
not in this picture?
It's, well,
not.
it's probably, this is the dumpster, so there's some of them depicted
Okay.
here.
So
and
it's
there's some of them depicted over here.
So if I'm going by this, it's kind of,
It's, well, it's, Eric put it on the plan.
it's over here.
So it's, well,
Because
it's,
this is the dumpster, right?
yeah, so it's right here,
So
actually.
looking
I had
for-
Eric put the square, the
Okay.
rectangles on.
So you're looking for some, if we go by this photo, some here.
No, I'm going on where the gray squares are.
Right.
That's pretty much, so,
Yes, this is the dumpster which is here.
yeah.
So
this is the dumpster
if we
here.
extend the picture, imagine it's
I know what you're
here
saying,
in the
yeah.
picture.
Okay, and
Right
kind of
here.
twisting around a
Yeah.
little bit, but okay. But,
And then,
yeah, go by Eric's plan, that's
So you're
an older
going-
rendition. But, so basically, what we drew in here was this 14 by 72 rectangle, which is the only space we have that is both within our lease line, outside of the rec area, outside of the electrical easement, outside of the 200-foot setback limitation. And so we have this space that we can put it in, and we can maybe fit a little bit more here along this line.
so you'd like to put it here and these?
Potential, this is probably more than we need, but, at least this area would be nice to have it all. And then we've got conduits going across the road here and here to the building. So if we could do something over in this area along the woods line, as you can see, it's pretty tight to the woods. And that's a planning and zoning discussion that we need to have as well.
And this would not be, I mean, all of this would have to go through planning and zoning
Yeah,
as
yes.
well.
Yeah,
But from
this-
us first, you need,
Well, I need approval to
in
look at.
here, do you need anything from us?
Well, it's your land still, even though it's inside of our lease line. So I'd like your approval to put it there. I don't know if I need it or not, but I would
Right.
certainly like
Because
it.
we lease the property to you.
Right. And this is on the other side of the yellow line is lease line for you, not for us. And the more room I have, the better I can either tilt the panels or, otherwise I'm gonna end up with a flat array that's gonna catch snow and it's gonna sit there for a longer period of time than if I get enough room to spread them out a little bit and put a slope on them. Otherwise, I can't spread them out and put a slope on the panels, and they'll shade each other if I'm really jammed up in a space.
So the panels are being put in by the housing authority, is that correct?
Yes, everybody may put in some, but I just talked to them today about doing maybe some on the roofs, some more on the roofs there. But my plan at this point in time is for the housing authority to install these and probably actually do it with myself and a couple of electricians and keep the price down to $1 so that they get paid back in hopefully 10 years, thereabouts.
Okay, so you're looking for permission from the town, then you're looking for a blessing to put them up within your lease line, and then you need something from us to be outside of your lease line.
Right. And you were concerned about the look, and
Has the housing authority already approved the funding for these?
no, housing authority so far, did I give you this rendering? Probably not. That's-
Yes. I
Okay.
believe that's-
Okay. Well, that's right, it's part of your package. I wasn't sure whether that was coming here tonight or not, so I brought some spares. No, they haven't. So far, they've approved the money for Gardner Peterson to draw it on paper.
Okay,
I did get an email last week from Eversource saying they're combining the two incentive programs for year 7 and year 8 into just one program. So I expect that to come out in the next couple of weeks. So it's, and they're offering about 11 cents a kilowatt hour for their incentive for a period of 15 years. So I would like to try to wrap this being the last year that I'm aware of their incentive program. They may have something else in the works for next year or something, but this being year 7 and 8 is sort of the last 2 years wrapped into one for the incentive program. And we've got about a $17,000 or $18,000 electric bill up there that I'd like to wipe out,
so
if not more.
my first suggestion is that we take a look at the actual lease and see what the wording in the lease says. Whether or not they need anything additional from us inside the lease line. And then outside the lease line, we have this They're outside the lease line, but within the setback.
Right, and here I get a good plan
Area.
too, because we're outside. of the
You're outside of everything.
I'm outside of the easement, I'm outside of the,
Mhm.
fortunately, I'm outside of the easement there.
Right.
And it's hard to design how
Mhm.
much space you need until you know whether you can tilt the panels and allow some spacing so you don't have shading, or whether you just gotta do a large
Right.
rectangular array, and which point in time, you probably lose 15% of production when the snow doesn't slide off it and you got the wrong angle.
So I'd like to start with, at the very least, this piece here, see what their lease says. And then I guess I'd like to get some information from zoning as to what would need to be done outside of us to go in this
And
area.
I'm meeting with Michael at 12:30.
Tomorrow, or probably
Wednesday.
Wednesday? Okay. And you'll have these,
To go over.
these are not for us, these are for you, correct?
I brought one for you that's not colorized.
Okay,
If you'd like that one.
I'll take that one, and then,
Or I can take it home and colorize it for you,
no,
bring
that's
it back.
fine. Then I can speak with Mike,
Yeah.
about that. So, and after your meeting with him, that might give us some of the information we need to answer some of the questions about what's the first step at our, process, whether we only need to speak to inside this area. This is town property outside,
It's what is in back right
yeah.
Yeah, this is all,
This
this is
is-
Duskus here.
This is Duskin, so this is all on town property, but
Right.
it's outside the setback.
Yeah.
And the electrical easement. And the lease line, and away from the rec area. So it's a little outside of everything.
Yeah, and I do have a little
Okay.
area for solar over here too, but, not sure whether I would even use that. I may use it.
So there's no room for it inside your lease line?
No, I
Okay.
mean, you see, this is the lease line here, and it cuts right through the driveway over here. There's a little bit of room over here, I suppose we could use, but it's still.
Is this cleared? That's the question. It could be,
Sort of. I mean, because the
Maybe.
road is right here.
right, okay.
So,
Any reason we couldn't clear it, if it wasn't clear?
I can't think of any, but I'm just curious if it was already cleared, because it's just another layer of what would have to be done that we'd want to account for,
yeah,
if it did need to be cleared.
Yeah, I'll look
But it's
at
not
this
clear,
area a
it's not
little
clear
more.
from here.
yeah.
So if we can keep this,
Now this, I assume this is an artist rendition of what it would look like.
Well,
is it your rendition?
You know, it's not exact.
Artist is a loose term.
Give us an idea of what.
Yeah,
what-
I mean, this basically is the look if it's an all-black panel.
Yeah.
It produces probably 5% less power, it's usually a couple pennies a lot more expensive, but,
So they'd be more like these
yeah,
short
I kinda
panels.
look like.
So are you hoping to put
all
them on top of your buildings as well as on the land?
Well, we already have a lot on top of the buildings, we did
And now you
4
want more.
power purchase agreements with Earthlight. We're
Okay.
paying them 10 cents a kilowatt hour for the power that they produce, as opposed to paying Eversource 21 cents almost.
Okay.
So they're on 4 of the buildings, and then we've got a full 3 5-panel arrays on this building already. And I just had the discussion, they may be willing to write a power purchase agreement, I don't know, for 7 panels, which would be remarkable, because if you go to the Green Bank, they say, no, we want 50 kW, which is probably like 50 panels to write a power purchase agreement. So if they want to do that, that'd be great, then we don't have to spend money, we could just get a reduction in electricity, which is the same thing as borrowing money and paying back on a loan. So, and I personally like the all-black look better. It's gotta be somewhat off the ground, just so that when the snow falls off, it doesn't block the panels. And so you can, weed whack underneath, at least the perimeter, that may try to grow some weeds under it, but in my opinion, all black looks better. And the other thing is, where you get this look. Nobody cares, that's nice to know, it gives me the flexibility. And there's 60 cell panels, and 72 cell panels, and the ones are longer than the other ones. So the configuration can grow this way or that way, depending on whether you put them in landscape or portrait, and it's just lots of options. I don't mind designing it all. I've designed my 24 kW system in my backyard, although it doesn't look so good when you look at it here with all the different colored panels, but nobody ever sees it, but the squirrels. There's too many of those already. And I did a 100 kW system that I designed, so I'm comfortable enough designing a solar array and versus paying somebody else to do it and mark it up. So we can save some money, and I still need the blessing of the board, and I still need the blessing. I'm gonna have Access review my cost analysis and make sure it's legitimate as far as, you know, it will save us money. I'm sure it will, but everybody wants to verify the next 5.
Okay.
So,
All right, so it looks like we have several questions to be answered before we can move in any direction. So we'll start looking at that process
okay.
as early as tomorrow.
And then, of course, after that, if we get the approval, then we will end up with sign-offs on some of the paperwork too,
Correct.
with your land.
Correct.
So, and maybe as many as 21 different contracts in order to do the 21 apartments we have left to solarize.
Interesting. Of course. All right.
Thank you. And I will say, if you want to find a way to spend more money in your budget, you can support your volunteers as well. While you're looking at spending more
At
money.
spending more?
Yeah.
We're always
Yes,
on that
that's
basis.
definitely our
That's
problem.
Definitely. Robin, can I see those attached
Thank you.
minutes from? Okay. Thank you. Okay. The next item is really just for information's sake, sharing both with the public and with the board. I had our town clerk give me a listing of vacancies on the town boards and commissions. And I started sharing that on social media, we put on the website, so it's constantly out there and we can see what we have available. Depending on what we do tonight, some of these may change. We have at least someone here this evening. So right now, what we show is from the elected positions, 1 regular vacancy and 2 alternate vacancies on planning and zoning, and 1 vacancy of a Republican member, Justice of the Peace. And for appointed officials, on the Conservation Commission, we have 2 alternate vacancies. From the EDC, we have 1 current vacancy and 2 alternate vacancies. We're waiting for a resignation, so that would make it 2, but right now, until we get that, the required letter, there's just 1 vacancy on EDC. Inland Wetlands has 1 regular vacancy and 1 alternate vacancy. Solid Waste Advisory Committee, everybody jump at once, 2 regular vacancies and 2 alternate vacancies. And on the Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 regular vacancy and 1 alternate vacancy. So you never know at any time who might be interested in serving their community and make it available. But I think it's best if we make it known. People may not always know those vacancies are out there. So the more we share, the more we'll reach different residents. The only requirement for all of these, with the exception of the Justice of the Peace, is that you be a Willington resident. Obviously, you'd have some interest in each position, but that's the basic. In order to fill this Justice of the Peace seat, you have to not only be a resident, but a registered Republican or endorsed by the Republicans, correct?
I believe you have to be registered.
Registered Republican, okay. So that one comes with a caveat. All right. So go forth and fill those vacancies. Now we have 2 appointments and then 1, we need to clarify an appointment. So I'll start with the requests we received. We received a letter from Rich Bendick.
Yes.
In support of Noah Vertifay as a member of the EDC. Noah is here with us tonight, so thank you for stepping up to sit on the Economic Development Commission and for your offer of work, your willingness to work there. I mean, 2 coming out here tonight to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. So you want to share?
Sure. So I am a pretty new resident of Wellington, just moved in a couple weeks ago.
Weeks.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get involved pretty quickly. But I grew up in Ashford and Eastford, so the area I'm pretty familiar with. When I was in Ashford, I was pretty involved with the community. I was in the planning and zoning board and part of the RTC there, as well as a lot of groups, local groups like the St. Philip's Church over there and the Knights of Columbus. And one of the reasons I really wanted to join the EDC is just because I really like to see the growth of business in the community, just to help to flourish and actually provide a solid tax base without putting more stress on the residents. And I think that just any way that I can help make that happen is something that I really look forward to.
Great, well, thank you so much, Noah. Again, thank you for your willingness to step forward. The EDC has become rather active as of late, so it's nice to see their new membership. They presented a plan to Board of Finance to really help move in a solid direction with economic development, so I think it's fantastic, John.
I
Absolutely.
just, what kind of businesses do you like and what kind do you not like? Is there anything that you don't like?
I'm less of a fan of kind of larger franchises. I'm a fan of mom and pops. Like I also own a small business that does digital marketing. So I definitely am a fan of kind of those more home-run businesses. While I think that there is some opportunity for those larger businesses, it kind of is there's a time and place for it. So I do like the placement of the Dollar General as an example, but I think that we should also be supporting our other local businesses throughout the town in order to kind of just help them to flourish. I would just love kind of the small business because it really adds to the flavor of the town.
Well, one of my favorite kind of small businesses is local farming. And whatever you can do with that, farm stands, farm tourism, selling, and we've been having a little bit of that. The land use department has been involved in trying to change the regulations on that. I would hope if you get involved in this that you might get involved in that and try to open up the town to that.
Sure. I grew up on a small farm as well, so that's pretty close to my heart. The farm life and things that are produced by the farm.
Okay, with that, I would like to make a motion to appoint Noah Vertife as a regular member of the Wellington Economic Development Commission, effective March 4th, 2019, expiring March 3rd, 2024.
I'll second.
It's a 5-year position.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
We're all fine.
Are they really on the EDC? Okay.
I put that up.
You ready for a 5-year commitment now? We're staying in Wellington, so at least 5 years.
Yep.
You made it a couple of weeks, so it's 5 years.
Yeah, you got this.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Noah, welcome to Wellington and welcome to the EDC and thank you
Thank you.
for your willingness to serve your community. So we look forward to it. The second is a reappointment that got kind of glossed over. So I move to reappoint Rick Maloney as a regular member of the Wellington Economic Development Commission, retroactive January 2nd, 2019, expiring January 1, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I think Rick, once again, he has not stopped despite the reappointment. So the last is really just a note. We need to clarify the assessor's appointment. All of our appointed positions, the tax collector, the town clerk, they are 4-year appointments. So when we did this, we made a motion for our 4-year appointment. The ordinance is actually that it's just a 2-year appointment. So it was an error on our part, and in looking at all of the vacancies, it brought this out when we took a look at that. So we sent a letter of clarification to Walter. So for purposes of continuity and transparency, I make a motion that we amend the appointment for Walter Topliff as assessor, effective November 26, 2018, and expiring November 22nd, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Do we have any thoughts about expanding that to 4 years since?
So
that'd be
we
more
could,
in
we would
line
need
with-
to go through the process of amending the ordinance. We could take it to town meeting, it's certainly something we could look at.
Although
It's not
wouldn't do first thing,
necessary, right? I mean,
first priority.
we,
Yeah, I'm just curious since if all the other
yeah,
positions
or by
are
4
years.
And we just changed the town clerk, and I think it was
Yeah,
put in line with the revenue collector.
right.
And the revenue collector, maybe the assumption was it was in line with the assessor, but the assessor is only 2 years, so I'm not sure where that came from. All right, so in your packet, the next item is Public Act 490, open space update. So our assessor has been working with land use, and they've been doing quite a bit of research looking at open space policy. So in his memo, and I apologize, Walter could not be with us today, he had a family emergency. That's certainly our next meeting, I think this is gonna take more than one meeting of discussion. So his memo states he's been approached by a number of residents concerning the current open space policy. The confusion lies in how many acres the landowner must have before they are eligible to apply and receive a reduction in taxes for the additional acreage. PA 490 open space is defined in the Connecticut General Statute, which he has attached. So the office has done some research going back into the 80s. Previous records prior to 1980 have not been found that speak specifically to the PA 490. And so his recommendation, you can see on your sheet the information he has been able to obtain. So with the current ambiguity in the adoption of the requirements, he's requesting that the Board of Selectmen address the issue by referring the matter to the Planning Commission to clarify the ambiguity in the current policy. Once they have made a recommendation to the Selectmen, then hold a public meeting to inform residents of the clarified policy and then take up the matter for a vote at a future Board of Selectmen meeting. This needs to be addressed as there are property owners in town who are receiving benefits that are different from other property owners. The town needs specific criteria that the property needs to meet before the designation can be approved. Once the new criteria are adopted, this office will research the properties that are out of compliance with the adopted criteria and make adjustments accordingly. And he's happy to assist in any way to develop a defined set of criteria. So it looks like we've got some holes in the different.
Doesn't say though what, exactly what we're,
So,
I'm looking at his list here.
yes. So there are suggestions on parcels that can be, a suggestion was made in a memo from the assessor to planning and zoning back in 2002 to set a minimum parcel size. He hasn't located anything that follows up on that recommendation, just that a recommendation was made from one to the other. It doesn't seem like anything has been set by the town to any of these specified standards. And Walter's bottom line is that we should set some defined criteria so that it's equal across the board.
I keep reading, limited to parcels of more than 5 acres with buildable land area of more than 2 acres.
And that was in, I gotta get rid of this.
In 2002 memo, and
Right,
plan of conservation and development, 2 of them, 3 of them.
and is that just discussion in the plan of conservation and development, but not actually set forth by the town somewhere? I think that's the discussion. He's also reached out, Walter and Mike, I've spoken with you, Bob, am I correct? They've been researching this for some time. Taking a look, do you have something you want to add? And again, Walter will come before us to move the discussion forward. He had hoped to be here tonight, but.
I'll speak insofar as how it impacts the Historical Society. The Historical Society has in its possession a parcel that's 4.56 acres. And at the time when we went to the assessment or the Board of Appeals, so we wouldn't pay taxes on it, they said that because there is a building lot embedded in that would be an investment property. And we said, okay, fine, we'll pay taxes on it. However, at the same time, when I asked, well, can we put that in open space? They said, no, you can't, because you have to have at least 5 acres of land to put it in open space. Fast forward, the society has paid about $15,000 in taxes on that property over the years since we inherited it or it was given to us by the Rubies. Now, the unfairness is there's several parcels on Ruby Road, 1 2 acres and 1 under an acre, that have been given open space designation, and they pay a fraction of what we're paying. So, and the parcel of 2 acres, that's a building lot. Yet they're paying open space the same as somebody that has 100 acres of land. So the society, which is a nonprofit organization, we run on donations. We've spent $15,000 on taxes when I'd like to be considered, we should have been able to go and have that land in open space if some of the other residents have had that option for under the amount of land that the society has. And I'm sure it's going to be looked at the opposite way too. People that have been getting that over the years saying, no, I lucked out. Well, the society didn't luck out.
Do we know, have we tracked down these other parcels, when and how they were granted that open space?
That's not up to me.
So there's many and there's no, from the details that their research has shown, they can't find anything except, so there's a special town meeting.
What started this, John, was when we had reevaluation. I got online and I looked to see what the situation was on the 4.5 acres that the society owns. Well, open space doesn't have a number, so I was rambling around through and found those 2 other properties on Ruby Road. And they're paying open space prices on the land area. Yet the society was told, no, you can't put it in open space because you've got less than 5 acres.
It was at the discretion of the
BAA.
at the time.
Right.
So the person making the decisions at the time without any clear set guidelines. So we have people with various amounts of land getting open space. There's no continuity, and it was suggested back in 2002 that there be a minimum set, only there's nothing to suggest any of that was followed up on. All of the definitions seem to come from the Plan of Conservation and Development, but it doesn't, that is merely a document that we refer to, and that should refer back to any zoning regulations, any ordinances. Those should speak to things that the town has put in place. So while it mentions them, there's nothing on our rules side that sets a definition of that PA 490 open space. So Walter's looking for, so the first step is for us to agree to refer the matter to the planning commission to clarify in the current policy, and then they would develop something and bring it back to us based upon what was done again back in 2002. And basically starting the process over again, and we give the authority for them to move forward with this. Yes.
Well, in doing so, I would like to know, was it the Board of Assessment Appeals, or was it through some other process that these other parcels were put in open space? You had one parcel which was 1 acre, you said?
Less than an acre.
Yeah, so it's not even a building lot, so, you have a hard time.
Might be a building lot, there's a lot of record.
Well, it could be, yeah.
Could be not.
And there are
You know,
quite a
back
few of those town.
Back in February of 1990 through January of the following year, a subcommittee is mentioned in their minutes for drafting an open space amendment. The definition of private open space must be specifically established, but then that doesn't happen. Then they get onto the POCD. It looks like they tried to do all these things, but then the next thing they do is just adopt a plan without making sure the things that were in the plan actually existed somewhere.
No, I would like, or I would want to have it identified exactly when and what the reasoning was behind putting these other parcels into open space, other than just saying, well, they have it and they're lucky you aren't, too bad. Other than just saying that, I'd like to say, why did we do this, and how do we want to go from there?
So I
But
think-
John, 40 years ago, when they did open space, they didn't have rules and regulations basically back 40, 50 years ago. So it could be that it's already, back then,
Correct.
1 acre
And we have no
qualified.
records prior to June
Right.
of 1980
Right.
that speak to this
So you
whatsoever.
have to look into, it. You know, you can't say, well, you can't do it now, because you only have 1 acre. So you're grandfathered into it.
Right, and Walter's not looking to change that, I mean, those things, that's some of the discussion we've had, and if we choose to go that way, it's moving forward that we have
Right,
some
I
standards set in place. So we can do one of two things, we can table this to our next meeting, and I can ask Walter to clarify some of those things. Whether or not I'll give the answer on every parcel and how it came to be, I don't know. And then wait to move in a forward direction until such time as he comes back before us.
I think if the question is whether or not we ask the PZC to go and make some recommendations, to me that is
It seems,
something that I would want to move on sooner rather than later. I think over the last several months, we've had reason to look at several properties, and we've had that question of, this property has just over 2 acres and has a house on it, and so I think we need to establish a policy.
right, and I would agree, they're gonna bring a recommendation back to us that we would then have to send on to a town meeting. So there would, to me, there would be several discussions before anything were put forward. And those questions that you have in that process between the assessor and PZC and our land use agent could be answered in the timeframe. But us moving forward allows them to start doing the work without waiting for us to get answers to questions that they may flush out in the process.
Well, I'd rather have an answer to the question before we start moving out than getting halfway through the process and discovering that there was an answer to that question and a good answer to the question. I
Well,
agree that,
regardless, I mean, shouldn't we have some written policy, regardless for whoever is making the decision next time?
Because
Like, doesn't make sense to
up
have
to this
something
point, they
written?
found nothing on record.
Or should it always be left up to the judgment of whoever is receiving the form at the moment, right? So I think that's the question, that do we leave it up to chance, or do we have an established policy? And I think, so the first question is, do we establish a policy? And then the next piece is, now once we do that, then what do we do to those who are not in compliance? What do we do moving forward?
well,
But I think
there
establishing
is,
a policy.
there's a very big question there.
Yes, but that doesn't need to stop us from establishing a policy for moving forward.
But the research is gonna happen, it's just gonna happen by us saying, go ahead and start looking at a recommendation to come to us. That research is still going to happen in there. It's a chicken and egg question, which one comes first? We get all of our questions answered and then tell them to go do the work, or they answer our questions in the process of doing the work. And so I think at the end result, it's gonna come back here for us to make any decisions. They're not usurping that authority.
Well, as I said about, or if they aren't in compliance, you know, what I really would hate to see was for someone who's been in open space for
40 years, and we suddenly say, oh, well, you haven't been in compliance, you owe us $100,000 in taxes. And
I would as well, I would as well, but I don't think that's what we're looking at here. I think we're looking at, we don't have anything, and so decisions are being made on a discretionary basis, and that's not the way in which this should move forward.
My point, John, when I asked this question of the assessor was, why is there a discrepancy here? You know, yeah, we've got less than 5 acres. Those two things that I just happened to stumble across have less than 5 acres. Why are we paying the full tax when they're not? And we have more land than they have.
Because somewhere there was a
I'm not-
discussion
I'm
of saying
not-
we're gonna
I'm
set it
not
5
asking
acres,
for
but
a
it didn't happen.
rebate. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just saying, how could this happen so unevenly?
this is the question that I want answered as well. But I don't want to make a change here and then go back and try it. I want to know, was there a reason if the original law that covered this grandfathered then that's fine. Let's find out before we go ahead and start trying to
I
change
think but the research that's been done shows that there is nothing, there's nothing in town records that they've been able to find, and they've been looking through, this has been ongoing since Walter started here, looking for something. And back in 2002, this memo from the assessor to the planning, zoning, and land use agent, a suggestion is made to set a minimum parcel size requirement of 5 acres. Which says to me, back in June of 2002, we knew we didn't have any minimum set. There's no record of anything, and they can't find any records on this topic before June of 1980.
So having been on the Conservation Commission and involved with the first plan, plan of conservation and development, at some point, the 5 acres might have been through that discussion.
Right.
It's stuck.
It's stuck.
So everybody started talking as a matter of fact, oh, the minimum acreage is 5 acres. And I guess we would have gone merrily on our way if I had looked and seen why a couple parcels of less than 5 acres were in open space.
So currently, that's the number that is being used,
Yes.
but there's nothing that
There's
says
nothing.
that has to be the number. There have been many discussions about using that number, and then it became the number that was
There's
used.
no ordinance. to
There's
say
no
that
ordinance,
that's-
but then we
that's
find
the-
that prior to that discussion, there were varying amounts, size parcels. So where, at some point, there was discussion, we should make it 5, but it never actually happened, but that's the number that's stuck and we move forward. So the people before, I don't believe did anything wrong. They tried to then narrow it down and put a number on it, but it didn't actually happen. It happened in theory, in discussion, but none of the procedures happened. There's no town meeting, there's no selectmen's meeting, there's no PZC meeting, and there's been a lot of research done on this to not find anything. So we're basically saying, if you came with 5 acres and I came with 4 acres, I'm gonna be told, no, but where? Could I argue that?
Yeah.
Yes. In absence of an ordinance that says 5 acres is our number. But not looking to penalize going back, these things, and that would be something we'd have to set forward, is that those prior to would be grandfathered into what that number was. So,
Is this, and I know that there's people searching upstairs and looking for records of Board of Selectmen meetings prior to 1980 or so. Was this the
Yeah.
issue that they were
yes.
trying to?
Yeah, Mike has been looking, Walter's been working at Mike's office, so the land use office, the assessor's office, they've been working with the town clerk, looking for meeting minutes to make sure that they looked at every meeting on file to make sure that they got all of the pertinent information, and they can't find anything before June of 1980 regarding this matter. And that looks like the first year there was a then POD, plan of development, which was before the conservation portion. on this. So yes, this has been ongoing for months. And we thought maybe they would be meeting minutes at the old town hall. That didn't happen, they weren't there. Everything is in fact here. So I would make a motion that we authorize the planning, the land use agent and the planning commission to help clarify the ambiguity in the current policy of PA 490 open space.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, kind of leaves things way wide open. I'm not going to be accepting of it if it does not give some point at which these other parcels gain their status.
And if there's no record of how they gained your status, you're not willing to,
Well, then we have to assume the status, we can either assume the status is legal or we can assume that it's illegal. I don't think it would be fair to assume that it's illegal if.
I think we're looking to move forward, not to turn back time, not to move backwards, but to go forward.
I am always looking to go forward, but I always get worried that other people might not be.
Look at what the
I
state
understand
says first.
Yeah.
What does the state say and their regulation on that?
A lot.
They must have a regulation already.
Oh.
Sometimes the state has many regulations.
Well, that's.
Many, there are many. There are
I would
pages-
look
there are
into
pages on
that.
them.
to be
Okay, any
sure.
other discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'll say nay.
Motion passes. All right. They have also been working with the land use attorney, just so you know, no more discussion. All right, so at our last meeting, we approved year 1 of the CIP plan. Our objective tonight is to approve years 2 through 5. We met last week. We did lots of work. Stuart is here as the chair of CIP to talk about that. Donna is not here today and has not given Stuart or myself the finalized plan as we had it last week. So he can speak to it, but after that, I might suggest that until we actually, such time we have to look at it, that we put off making a vote on it. So Stuart, I'll let you speak to the plan.
So there's some broad issues I just want to bring to everybody's attention. One is the Board of Education is considering what their future plans are for the schools in terms of renovate 2 schools, renovate 1 school, build a new school. If you recall the study they had done a couple years ago, that's supposed to be a direction being chosen by the Board of Ed by November. Obviously, that's a big ticket item, and it's certainly above and beyond the scope of the existing CIP budget. Obviously, at some point, it will go to the taxpayers and so on for approval, but that's issue is coming, and it's going to be, a big hit to the taxes to do with that, even with the school reimbursement, thing like that. But what does the school cost? And so the Birch Grove and Tolland, where they're looking at replacing, is $40 million or something like that. So that's coming. Another one is just the general amount of CIP funding. Generally speaking, it has remained flat for many, many, many years. Occasionally it goes up a little bit. One thought one time was to try to follow the grand list. So I believe this year the grand list is up 0.61%, and use that as a little cost of living increase, so to speak, in CIP. The problem is the expenses go up more than that. The cost of the new trucks doesn't go up at 0.61% as much as you'd like it to be. It goes up 2, 3, 4, 5%. When the emissions kicked in for the new diesel engines, it went up 10% a year. And then by the time you get around to buying a truck, the more and more of our CIP money is going to be allocated with leases, primarily public works vehicles, which would not allow us to do many projects in other areas, be it the recreation department or the board of ed or the fire departments and so on. So that trying to even keep it at the, and the town budget as a whole, I don't believe follows the grand list either, as much as you'd like it to. Realistically, the cost of doing business on the town level goes up more than the 0.61, but that has not been reflected in the CIP budget. So as a result, we can buy fewer and fewer things, and for the upcoming equipment that Public Works is looking to replace, it's gonna eat up almost all of the CIP budget with zero money available to do anything like fix a roof or put something at the park or buy a phone system or whatever it would be. So those are the big items to kind of watch out for, what's coming, and at some point, what if anything do you want to do about it? The Public Works vehicles in particular, they're looking to maintain the fleet that they have. They're not looking at expanding trucks, they're not hiring new employees that they have to buy new trucks for. They're simply trying to keep on the road what they have on the road. But the costs keep going up and the CIP budget doesn't.
So the plan that we voted out of that committee, which is an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen, left 3 of the 4 remaining years roughly in the $580,000 range. It was year 5 that things got a little bit out of sorts and not our norm.
Which is not unusual for the catch-all to, okay, we'll put it in year 5 to continue to think about it, and maybe some magic money trees will grow and we can do some of this. The other projects that are pending, and some of them have been pending for decades, one of them is new, is drainage on Schofield Road and Village Hill Road. And the new one this year is the culverts on Liska that they say are in poor condition and undersized. So the town engineer is estimating Liska Road at being $750,000 just for that one project. Well, when your entire CIP budget is $550 and most of that's being eaten up by your equipment leases already, how do you afford the $750 to fix the drainage on Liska? And unfortunately, that being pretty much a dead-end road with only one way out, if that were to get deteriorated enough that you were unable to use it, there's a lot of people that can't get out of their street. And the Schofield and Village Hill have been talked about for at least 10 years, if not 20. Why don't you, and we all know where the spots are. In this case, it's only the lower end of Village Hill below Pinecrest, where, the water comes across the road and freezes all the time and washes into the neighbors' yards and causes a mess. And every year we go, well, we really like to do that. And, and that's at $250,000 to $350,000 a whack for those.
So the portion of the CIP plan that affects our budget that's being presented this week was year 1, which we did vote on last week. The others are part of the plan that needs to be approved at town meeting. So we have some time, so we'll make sure that Donna gets us the final spreadsheet. It's a working document that last week, and I don't even remember what night we met, there was something here every night, we discussed and we finalized, and so Donna makes those additions and corrections on the spreadsheet and then gets it out to us. So we'll make sure that we all have that so that our next meeting we can approve that.
How much should the Board of Selectmen approve for the fuel tank project at Public Works? Is that the 180 figure?
We did 160, and so that number will change, but it was off budget, so it's not the number within the Board of Selectmen's budget piece.
So
Because it was an
it's
off
rare
budget
that we
number.
have good news,
Yes,
but
the good news is
we'd asked Public Works and the town engineer to kind of relook at the cost of replacing the diesel fuel tank at Public Works. The original estimate they had from a vendor said $180,000, and they were able to come up with another one that seems to be accurate and something they can live with for $100,000. So big difference between 180 and 100. And we appreciate them making that effort to make that happen for some significantly less money.
So that change we made, the information came after we voted on it, and so we made that change in the plan at CIP, but the number is an off-budget number and where the funds come from. So when we go to Board of Finance, those aren't actual dollars that we're asking the town for. So when we look at the overall plan next week, you'll see it in there, and it'll be adopted in the overall plan. All right. Anything
So
else?
that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Stuart, and thanks to the CIP for their work with that. Okay, old business.
We have F.
Oh, yes, we have F. So, again, our tax collector is resigned. She's done as of Friday, but she has offered to, in the interim, train someone here to know how to take payments, and then the things that we couldn't do, that she can do, she would come in and do on Friday, so she would work here all day on Friday for us at a per diem rate. And the per diem rate she's asking for is based on her salary in summers. I believe she was asking for $35 an hour. And it is just one day a week. We do have the position out, it closes, Robin, do you know the exact date? Is it, it's next Friday? Oh, this Friday. So her position closes this Friday, so we'll begin that process. But depending on who we get and what their certifications are, they need to arrive in time there. And she is willing to then stay on the night train, both the assistant that would be starting and then the revenue collector on those Fridays. So I would be looking for some approval from this board to have Lisa or
Did you make the motion?
I did not. Yeah. So I will move that we employ our current tax collector on a per diem basis until such time as we have hired and trained a replacement at her requested rate. I don't have that number in front of me, and I believe it to be 35. It was in her, the offer was made in her resignation letter, so it is in writing. So I'll use my motion as the number suggested by Lisa in her correspondence to us.
Which, if I remember correctly, was 35.
That's what I believe it to be.
Okay, I'll accept that.
I just need a second.
Oh,
Was
second.
that- Okay, now I need a discussion. So I thank her for offering. She knew what a position it was leaving us in. Again, I wish we, in good and welfare, I'm gonna say more great things about the work Lisa has been able to do here. And so I thank her for offering to help us get through this time. This too shall pass, but it gives us someone who's done very well here for the town in the role she's been in, and still continuing to help us and make sure things with the town run smoothly. Any other discussion? Yes, sorry.
Is there any reason or benefit to put in some sort of like expected number of hours that this would be? If she's gonna be working Fridays, are we assuming that about 7 hours a week?
I would say maybe 6, because she would be here 9 to 2 when we're open. So maybe we say no more than 7 hours, so she needed to come in early to do some things before or after.
Yeah, I think that makes sense,
okay.
so that we're not just giving carte
Sure.
blanche to just kind of.
So I would accept that, are you amending the
I
motion?
am, I'm making a friendly amendment.
And I accept that friendly amendment to, no more than 7 hours a week. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Unless the two of you have offered something new, I don't have anything new as far as performance evaluations this week. Okay. Good and welfare, so this gets back to me saying nice things about our revenue collector. As of Thursday, which was the last day in February, we had $6,705 to meet our budget total to collect, and so the budget was $13,191,188. As of Thursday, she had collected all but $6,705. Now, today is March, and this number was from earlier today, so we could have ended with slightly more. As of this morning when she handed this to me, we have met budget and surpassed it by $2,869. So she's leaving us in good shape. So kudos to Lisa. She may have given us her notice a week and a half ago, but she certainly hasn't stopped working to make sure that everything that needs to be done in that office is being done. And she has quite a manual of procedures, because I said, if we needed to do something in your absence, and you showed someone and they forget, and she pulled out a manual that is very clear written discussions. Christine?
I just want to say, as a citizen of Wellington, one, I'm very sorry to see her leave. She has done a fantastic job for us. I don't know what the name of that list is of delinquent taxpayers, but she has cleaned that up
Yes, she has.
tremendously. There's only really a handful of people in
So
town.
it's only slightly larger, only because now she's gotten through the new set of delinquencies. But she had, yes, it's continuously. There's some weeks I get a couple of lists a week because she's really working hard with people, and the manner in which she does that, I think, helps get to how her collections go.
She really enjoys working with people. And that's a tough position sometimes to, you know, folks come in, sometimes they're not happy
Yeah.
when they get up to that window. But Lisa diffuses and people leave happy. And as I said, as a citizen, I'm just pleased that she's worked very hard to collect back taxes. So, thank you.
I couldn't agree more. She, I don't think I've ever heard her raise her voice to anyone in that office, and they don't often come willingly to hand over their hard-earned money, so kudos to her. I do have one other item for good and welfare. I'm going to be very vague in speaking today, so as to the privacy of a family. We had a family in town today who suffered a serious loss in their home. There was a fire this morning, and so I won't say who they were, but kudos to our 2 fire departments in the surrounding towns who answered the call that they are either paid or volunteered to do and came forward, and no one was hurt, thankfully. But certainly there's a family in town whose name I will keep out of the public record, who could use your thoughts and prayers as they move forward to either rebuild or work on a new home. So it's not something we want to see, but again, kudos to all of their fire safety things following the right pattern, and our first responders. Yes, Bob?
Just an item, John, you should be happier this week than you were last week, because there's a new farm that's been okayed through inland wetlands on Myrtle Road for this coming season, so there you go.
Kudos.
Very happy.
Well, you look forward to welcoming them. Maybe they'll be on the farm tour. It's in June,
Maybe.
so yay. All right, so with that, I have nothing else, but I would move that we enter into executive session to discuss a personal matter and invite the town clerk.
Okay, I'll second then.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so moved. So Robin's gonna, well, now we're closed, but Robin's gonna go upstairs and let you come down. In the event we were still open when she had to come down.